This is the first day of the January 92 7-day retreat at Springwater. The topic for the first talk of a retreat has not changed in all these years of retreats. But we ourselves in listening and talking have changed. We're changing all the time. None of us is the same as we were yesterday, let alone at the last retreat. I'm saying this so maybe it is easier to listen to what seems to be the same thing, the same topic. Of course, for the people who are here for the first time, and there are quite a number of you, it will be the first time unless you've heard tapes of the first talk. What we like to enter into is the whole thing of authority projected onto or arising in the person who is giving the talk, or authority demanded or wanted in the person who is talking. We'll be talking about listening, which we have for 20 years, and others have for I don't know how many years. And about our relationship with each other, which is so crucial to look into it right at the outset of a retreat. Not just to talk about it, but to look at it, at how we're listening, as we're listening, and as things are pointed out that happen in listening, which prevent the openness of being here without a position. So even though very similar words have been said over and over again, can the speaking looking and the listening looking be one new happening right now? So we don't get off on the track. I've heard this before. She always says the same thing, because then listening comes abruptly to an end. And what is taking over is memory rail. And that can be seen happening if the mind is really interested in finding out what it is doing from moment to moment. A moment of openness, and then the closing onto a memory rail, memory track. Remembering words and listening to the memory of those words and the remembered as well as new reactions to remembered words. That is all an automatic happening. Automatic, programmed. And yet the openness of listening right now without wondering, entering into no man's land or no person's land. And therefore maybe for the first time seeing or hearing something. Which doesn't necessarily mean the thing, the word is new that is being said, but the listening is new. And then everything is new, renewed, fresh, of astonishing energy. So in listening to a talk this morning, the first of a 7-day retreat, what is the mindset? What are we expected to hear? And What is that expecting mindset? Can it be felt right now? And question in the feeling, in the perceiving of the mindset. I know what she's going to say. Oh, I hope she will say this. I hope it'll be fresh. I hope it'll turn me on. This is mindset and expectation, which we all carry. There's none of us who doesn't. We've grown up this way. Maybe there was already a mindset in the uterus. I don't know. To expect something, I don't know. And to listen without expectation, meaning the mindset of expecting something is exposed, is heard in this vast listening space, or in this narrow listening space. The mindset is exposed and therefore not trusted. It's something old, and something old does not fit something new. It makes the new into something old, and it misses its vitality. So not to allow the thought to take over. I shouldn't have any expectations. I shouldn't have any remembrance of what first day talks are like, or I shouldn't expect anything of her. I shouldn't have any ideas about her, but I do have them. They're there. Not to move into battle with shoulds, what I should have or shouldn't have. That's the counter expectation. But just to allow to reveal itself what is there. And not trust it. Not put one's listening into it. But just see it as one of the things, one of the programs that arises in this computer, but does not need to be a hindrance if it is seen. On the contrary, anything that's seen is more seeing taking place, more opening, more awareness of this listening apparatus that has evolved in us personally and human beings as a species. Listening according to expectation, to wanting, to imagery from the past. Has its value, its survival value. We're not attacking it. We're not saying get rid of it, but can it come into awareness? Imagery of the person right now who's talking. Expectation, wanting. Afraid she may say something that rattles my foundations. What are our foundations? What are we positioned in, cemented into? Are we? Do we need to defend any position? We think we do. It's so automatic. Again, it's a program to defend what we think we are and have. To defend and to attack what sounds different, what seems to contradict that which we feel grounded in and are defensive of. It holds true for all of us. It already starts in little children at a certain age of having had relationship with brothers, sisters, and mothers and fathers. You see, what we're looking at here together, and it's free for anyone to look, is not at all necessarily my personal history or your personal history, but what has happened and is happening for all of us. universally. You could say, well, how do you know that? How do you know that every human being is defensive? Well, maybe not every human being is, but are you? Am I? Defensive, protective, and wanting to hear what reinforces the fortress. Sometimes it doesn't feel like a fortress, it feels like a very feeble tent. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying I'm pronouncing universal truths, but in looking, the looking is not interpersonal history, although personal examples do come up in the talk, and it is usually generally appreciated. And then I say this is what I personally remember. But in looking at listening right now, expecting to hear things which will reinforce what one feels, be what one wants, one craves, one yearns for, support or inspiration. Afraid to be made insecure or unsure of oneself, and therefore shutting down the listening or projecting things onto the speaker. That is true for human beings. One can test it out, whether it is so or not. And this is what a talk like this is, not a propagation or propounding of dogma, knowledge about human beings or psychology, but an invitation to look for oneself freely, gently, whether what is said is really so, to find out, to discover the mechanisms in our own body-mind which keeps us locked up, closed up, defended, separate. And the beauty of a gathering such as this is that regardless of our personal, very differing backgrounds, gender, age, cultural differences, we can all share in this looking. In this openness of looking, wondering, listening, discovering about defensiveness or aggressiveness, closing down or opening up, listening or just remembering tracks and going on with reactions to remembrance. In this open discovery, there is no apartheid between you and me, no difference, no separation. And there's no effort that I have to make to feel related to you. We are related in all of that. I don't have to make any attempts at relating. In that direct looking and discovering, there is direct relationship. And direct means, somebody just wrote on a note, what does she always mean by direct? When she uses the word direct looking, direct listening, direct discovery. It means it's not mediated by a belief or a thought, a nice idea or theory. We can all agree on a theory. Usually we can't all agree. But if we do, then we feel related because we all chime in to the same theory that we like, that agrees with us, that we know, that we can repeat, and we feel relatedness in repeating it together. Do I sound critical of this? I don't mean to. I mean to be very objectively descriptive of what is going on. But if we're not holding on to any theory, but just looking and discovering together the mindset of expectation, fear of what may be said, or wanting to hear something, or the mindset of imagery about the person who's speaking, or in the person who is speaking, mindset about oneself or about the people here. If we discover about this mindset, we're related. Because this is what's operating in you and me. And discovery is possible for you and me. Coming out of goodness knows where. Suddenly something is seen. It's clear. There was defensiveness. And it does, at that moment, it doesn't need any defense. One doesn't have to be defensive about defensiveness when it's seen. It's a relief to see something true, something that is so. And in the energy that accompanies this discovery, what is discovered loses its strong hold or sting. If only for that moment of discovery. If the mind closes and now wants to hold on to discovery and preserve it, so forth, then there is not that energy of fresh discovery. Then is the energy of wanting to preserve, to keep. And the energy of fear, I may lose it, I may not have it. So in talking together here for 7 days, or it'll be 6, because I will not be here on Thursday morning. These talks are not intended to put one over on you, get you into the Springwater fold, disseminate a party line. Things like this have been mentioned. People wonder about this, are afraid of this. See how important it is that we discern for ourselves what is going on? Can we discern whether it is an invitation to look at what is being said, to find out for oneself whether it is so, or whether it is a dogma being propounded and expected to be accepted? Because that's not what I'm doing. If you feel this is what I'm doing, please let us talk about it. I may have to look again. I'm not a perfect human being. I don't know whether there is such a thing as a perfect human being. Quite sure there isn't. But in saying things, it is, look, let's see it, let's discover it together. All for yourself. Not believe that what I say, because I've done this for 10 or 20 years, therefore I must be true, I must be an expert. I'm not. I'm looking freshly, this morning talk, at defensiveness, openness to listen, even if it may hurt, to not withdraw the soft limbs and organs from the criticism, but to expose them to what is being said, and to live through this amazing discovery that we can survive, and survive well, being criticized, or being asked something, or questioned something. We don't think we can survive this, and very often we have let's say a staff meeting, and somebody says something to me and so quickly wants to show me, I'm not trying to hurt you. I hope I'm not hurting you. I don't mean to be personal. It's not in our repertoire that someone may not take it personally, but be there. Nothing protected. Nothing woundable, because the listening is there to look impersonally at what is happening in human beings like you and me. And the marvelous togetherness of that, if we can talk to each other without having to defend or protect, or be afraid of insulting or hurting. If we do hurt, can we feel it? Feel it non-withdrawingly, but exposed, right in there in the hurt. So it does not become something else. So it can run its organismic course and be done with. Because anything that hurts due to something somebody said will run its course of hurting and then not hurting anymore. It's gone. Unless thought keeps the event up in memory. The scenario is being replayed, and the connection with the body, of course, is in that replay. It's plugged right in there. Then the hurt persists. But if it's allowed to be seen as happening, felt without any resistance, no fear of not surviving it. The whole body not wrinkling up or withdrawing, and feeling the urge to wrinkle up and withdraw. And then wondering, well, why? It doesn't have to. Everything can be there, open, not deflated, also not inflated, just there. The heart, the body, the skin, the brain. Everything can be there and felt in its potential to withdraw, to resist, capsule in, or lash out. All of that potential is also perceivable. That's the amazing thing. When we're really set on discovering about ourselves, alone and in relationship, already the potential to withdraw, to wrinkle up, can be noticed. And the sooner it's noticed, the less it does have to take place. Because in the noticing there is, no, let's hear it, let's go through the thing without withdrawal. Does that sound like a tremendous or impossible feat? The invitation is there to test for oneself. Not to take on authority, because there is no authority anywhere, including in oneself. Everything has to be newly discovered every day as it happens. Yesterday's discovery is not worth seeing something now. In the bright daylight or starry nightlight, or in the dark, it doesn't matter. So if we hear something or remember something from the talk, and the mind starts to make something out of it and gets all excited over it, positively or negatively, beware of what is happening. Is there now the memorization and reacting to memory? And can that be seen? Can it be discovery of that process? Not that it's bad or wrong. We do remember things. But if we start getting excited, angry, afraid, sad, then what are we responding to? Seeing something in ourselves, or what we remember somebody said? It hasn't penetrated, it remains on the surface level of memory and reaction to memory. Does it have to? Of course not. What is it that the person, here in this case the person who was speaking, what did she say? And what is it that brings the reaction? What is it that hurts? Why? To leave all of these questions open and allow the mind and body itself to plunge into itself under the impact of this question. Why is this happening? By that I don't mean to start a rational analysis. Although if this is what one is inclined to do in the beginning, then do it. And see how far it goes to rationally analyze. It's because of this and that in intellectual thought process. But to discover the limits of that and the advantages, the clarity of it, for oneself. And then find out one still isn't in touch with the sadness or the fear, the anger, or whatever. That needs more than analysis. It needs a direct touching. From where? From what point? From what position? From no position, from no point. From nothing. Just what's there. In the raw, the pain, sadness, fear, anger. What is it without any outside position taken? I should have it, I should not have it, it's good, it's bad, I have to get into it. There's also a position. But what is going on right now? We don't know because we have so many ideas of what should go on or shouldn't go on. And so many quandaries of what I should be doing in order to contact it. That's what's going on and perpetuates the feeling of a split inside, a non-in-touchness with a direct happening, a physical feeling of sadness. What is that? If I don't know, don't have an attitude toward it, take no position, don't want to be done with it and don't want to have it, don't. Just what is it? I don't know what it is. I won't even call it sadness because that also is a step away. A label is so connected to past associations. It's a whole network of its own, one label of sadness. Network of remembrances, past events, and all of it associated with feelings, reactions. So by not using that network of labeling, what is this state? Right this instant. Which is not yesterday's or last moment's instant, is now. What is it? Can the mind indeed quiet down in not knowing, in not wanting to do something about everything? In not knowing what to do, in not needing to know what to do. Just quiet down in not knowing. In the presence of what is there but not known. At the same time, the changing light and shade, coolness of the air, the breathing, that's there, isn't it? It doesn't have to be manipulated, it doesn't have to be made yogic, long or short. What is it? And I also don't know about this unfathomable process of one inhalation, one exhalation. What is it? It's there. It's taking place. and with it millions and trillions of things happening in this body that we don't know anything about, but they're taking place and keeping this organism functioning in an unfathomable way. Some of it can be sensed, like inhalation, blood circulation, heartbeat, pain sensations, or the circulation of energy. But so much of it is beyond our range of sensitivity to really be in touch with, and yet it's taking place. And no one is directing it. It's just happening intelligently. It's amazing. So there in the presence of this state of sensation, which we won't call by any name anymore, before we called it sadness or pain or anger, we allow it now just to manifest unknown as an unknown. And yet, whatever sensing there is in touch with whatever is going on, inwardly and outwardly. The cough, the moving of cloth on mats, maybe some pain someplace, some perspiration, something is there. And I'm labeling it again because we are talking with each other. But it doesn't need to be labeled or networked at all, because it's there, alive, this instant, without needing to be known, and without anyone separating from it and saying, I have this, I am this, I should do this, this is that, I know it, I must find out more about it. That also is part of this ongoing happening. If it's seen, it doesn't need to lead to a split or continue and perpetuate a split in ourselves. Because then it's just one of the things that is going on together with clearing the throat, thinking about ourselves in this way or that way, and the emotions that go with how we think about ourselves. All that is going on. And no one is directing it. No one is at fault. And no one gets credit. It's just going on. For you and me and all of us. Can there be an awakening to it? Without making anything out of it? Not trying to fix it or fixate it or get rid of it. Just what's there. What is it? I don't know. In working this way, alone and together, what is our relationship? When we're all looking at the same thing, do we even talk about relationship? All in this together, as one listening, one looking, one discovering. You and me is just some more of what we have abstracted from this. And yet it's not a denial that there are some 32 bodies sitting here with 32 different past experiences or present states of pain or energy or whatever, tiredness or freshness. But the being that, the awakeness to it, the non-rejection of it or non-acceptance, just allowing this to manifest and be seen, that is if it takes place, is the same for all of us. No matter what's in the individual pot. If it's boiling, it's the same boiling everywhere. If it's freezing, it's the same freezing everywhere. I already mentioned last night that please, if something is not clear in a talk, or you don't see it this way, want to present how you see it and feel it, or want to go over it, or go further with it, then that's what meetings are there for. You're never wasting my time. With no matter how many times something is brought up, that sometimes how people introduce their question. I'm sorry for you, must have heard this so many times, and here I come with it again. Don't assume that I'm tired of hearing it, or that I'm referring to what I've heard 1,000 times, because this moment is not 1,000 times, it's now to look again, freshly. And in that there's energy and joy and relatedness. So you don't have to carry that baggage. Doesn't have to be any shame or guilt, which sometimes is connected with this, because we were reprimanded and exhorted in school to get it. And if after a while we didn't get it, we got the wrath of the teacher. Or were shunted aside as hopeless, too slow. But this is completely different work. It's clear that we need to look freshly every day, every moment. It is so clear that therefore there is no reprimand for bringing something up. If you and I look newly, forget about the past time. Also from questions that people do bring up in meetings, these talks evolve. I do write them down if I have a chance. I write the questions down and then read them at the beginning of a talk. There's been a lot of feedback that people have appreciated hearing all these questions. Here in the last California talk, there were a couple of people said, "Why do you read all of these questions?" It's the first time I've heard it. And I forget now what was suggested to do in its place. But it was very unique. It hasn't been the usual thing. So I will continue with it, but don't hesitate to tell me. And tell me also what it is that is grating or what it is that makes it difficult to hear too many questions. Because a lot of people have mentioned it makes it easier to feel each other's. And sometimes somebody's explicit question makes one's own implicit question a little bit more explicit. One can see what is troubling one. Some people are better at verbalizing than others. In writing down a question, I'm trying to take great care not to reveal who the question is coming from. If you bring something up that is so personal that you don't want it to be discussed or brought up at all, then do mention it to me and I will not write it down, obviously. I cannot remember verbatim what we say, including myself. I have to say it freshly. I have to write it down the way I remember it. It may not be exactly how you said it. It may also have merged with somebody else's question. Maybe 2 or 3 people, that usually happens, ask a similar question. and emerged one is written down. So just because it doesn't sound exactly the way you put it, don't feel misunderstood or not listened to. And then we will see which question beckons to be looked at most as we read all of these. I'm going to be doing that. We haven't had that up for vote. We haven't done that. If I leave a question out, usually people will say, you have not entered in on that question now for 2 days. I've been waiting for that question to come. If you say that, it'll come. I'm not leaving something out purposely, or if it's demanded, then we'll go into it. Which does not mean, and please, that is so, you don't have to bring a question in order to be a good retreatant. There's no such thing as good or bad retreatant. We're just here to do whatever we need to do. And if questioning or bringing a question is not there for a person, then don't think you can't come because you won't be interesting to me or to the group. But notice that these thoughts come up and question them. Questioning meaning not being under their domination. There are always enough questions to go around for 6 or 7 days. So you don't have to strain or feel bad. And don't have to stay away just because of that, but you also don't have to come to meeting. I don't want to sound as though you're expected to appear in a meeting. You're not. We're all equal human beings here who do what they need to do and not keeping track of each other. We will end here for today.